Hi everyone, today we'll be discussing on the subject organization behavior. I'm going to talk on the topic perception. Let us understand what is perception. Perception means what do an individual think, what are his thoughts, what are his beliefs, what are his process, the thought process which he have in him, and how does that perception develop. What are the various factors because of which he have a certain perception towards a certain thing. So let us understand how do a person form a perception. Factors influencing perception. Receiving stimuli. Stimuli means when a person comes into a surrounding and he gets into a conversation in an open surrounding, he receives a lot of information, receives a lot of message which is retained in his mind, and then he slowly develops conclusion out of whatever message and information he receives. Selecting stimuli is where he tries to gather all the information and try to retrieve an information which is useful for him, which is going to benefit him. Organizing stimuli is where he is organizing the information in him. He will filter the information and he will keep only those information which is useful for him. Interpreting information is where whatever I have understood, whatever individual have understood, he will try to interpret in an open forum, maybe in a seminar or in a workshop or in a lecture. What he has understood, he try to express in his own words. That becomes his own ideas and which he tries to express in his own words. Response. Now in response there can be two sides of response. Either it can be a positive response, either it can be a negative response. If an individual have a positive response, he will definitely talk good about a certain topic because he have a positive response towards it. If he have a negative response, either he will completely avoid it or he will talk negatively or react negatively towards it. Coming to the next thing. What are the factors which influence perceptions? First of all, it is the attitude which we have in us. We can have a positive attitude or we can have a negative attitude. Unsatisfied need and motive is one factor of attitude, and that is a negative attitude. Now this negative attitude is created in us when we have our motives unsatisfied. There is a certain level of unsatisfaction in our mind due to which we react negatively. Then comes the interest factor. We would like to engage ourselves into activities, or we would like to engage ourselves into conversation which is of our common interest or which is of our interest. Then coming to the next factor, that is past experience. Now again here in past experience, either we have a good experience or either we have a bad experience. When we have a good experience, definitely a perception towards that experience is positive and we would like to share with everyone. Moreover, an individual tried not to talk about a negative experience because that have brought a negativity in his mind, so he tried to avoid that because he have a negative perception towards it. Expectation, again, if our expectations are fulfilled, we have a positive perception towards it. But if our expectations are not fulfilled, again we create a negative perception towards it. So this is how our attitudes are formed. Our attitudes are formed either positively or negatively depending upon the kind of situation and the kind of experience we have in our life. Coming to the next one, the target. Again, targets influences our perceptions. Like for a certain event, we go to a certain event and we experience something. Coming to the next one, that is motion. Moreover, a person always try to retain everything which is in motion. For example, if you see advertising, moreover it is in motion, it is been shown, and people, they retain that in their mind for a longer period of time. Sound is like people like to listen to music. They love to listen to music because sound attracts people. Size, again, nowadays if you see that moreover things, images are, animated images are more attractive, animated movies, animated cartoon networks and all that creates a lot of interest in the mind of the viewer. Repetition, if you see in advertising and all, moreover the messages are repeated again and again, because when the message is repeated, that retains in our mind for a longer period of time. It's just like a gentle reminder to us. Situations. Situations in life again creates a lot of perceptions in our mind. There are situations which are completely absurd and we totally we really react negatively towards it. But there are certain situations which are very favorable, which are very pleasant. For example, if you go in your office and you get a very pleasant environment, you love to go to your work every day. Coming to the next one, that is attribution theory. Let us understand what is the meaning of attribution. Attribution means what we create, the views, and what views do we create about others, what do we think about other person. Okay, normally we become judgmental when we have to judge other people. We just look at them, we try to analyze their traits, we try to analyze their body language, and according to that we create a perception, or we conclude that this person is of that trait or this trait. So we create perceptions in our mind not only for ourselves, but we also create perception for other people who are there around us. First attribution is dispositional attribution. Now why do we call this dispositional attribution as an internal factor? Because this is something which we can control. The behavior of an individual can be controlled by an individual. For example, if in a classroom, a teacher tells a student, you behave yourself well, next time don't repeat it, then it is completely on the student to control his behavior. He can control his behavior and he can make sure that next time he doesn't repeat that indisciplined behavior. Situational attribution, we call it as an external factor because again this behavior cannot be controlled by us. It is completely an external factor. For example, if I or any other individual come late at workplace because of some late trains or heavy rains, or there is a problem in the train or transportation, then there can be a possibility that the person comes late not because he wants to come late, but because of the situations. So there are many situations because of which a person non-intentionally has to occur into unpleasant events and all. The next one is, what are the errors in perception? Let us understand why do we call errors in perception. First of all, whatever we think, whenever we think something, we always think that we are correct from our side. Whatever I think, I'm perfectly fine because that is what I think and my perception cannot be wrong. But that is completely not encouraging, because we all have to understand that as an individual we can also have errors in our own perceptions. One of the basic thing is stereotyping. Moreover, we see that there are certain things where we have already formed conclusion that this is not for me, or this is not at all applicable for me, or sometimes we put a stigma on a certain class of society or a certain thing because that is how everybody look at it. For example, we always make a general statement that all politicians are corrupt, but that is not true. But just because we see it around us, we already have created a negative perception in our mind, and that is what is stereotyping, where a certain thing we are completely negative toward a certain thing, or we never think positive about it. Selective perception. Again, we always try to concentrate only on certain things in which we are confident and we are comfortable. We try to avoid the other things, other perceptions. For example, if I want to think from my point of view, I will not entertain other people's perception into it. and I think, yes, this is what I think is correct, and I try to impose my decisions on others because of my selective perceptions, where I think that this is the only perception which is correct. Halo effect is where you think, you may be attracted to a certain person because of one particular trait. For example, a person has been called for an interview, he comes neatly dressed, he have a very good communication skill, and then the interviewer, he just feels that he is the right person for the job, but after 3 months when you find out he is not giving the right kind of output, what happened? Who is wrong over here? Is the person who has come to give the interview, or the person who has come to take the interview? The problem is that whenever we meet somebody for the first time, we overall conclude that this person is apt, and then after a particular period of time we find that he is not the way, or he doesn't perform the way we are expecting him to do. This is why, because the reality and the expectation, there is a lot of gap, and that happens because we have already created a perception in our mind that this person is good and he is not up to the good when it comes to performing. We already have that halo effect, because of which we end up in getting the negative results. Or you can say we end up in getting results which is not up to that standard level. Projection, again, where a person is focused only to a certain point of view. He doesn't want to get into other point of view. You can say that is one kind of narrow-minded thinking, where we are just projecting, or we are focusing only on one point of view, and then we neglect the other things, which is also not very healthy. Similar to me is where we get attracted to people who are similar to our character or nature, of our own interest. We get attracted to certain people, and we feel that, yes, because they are similar to us, they are also good. Because we are always good for ourselves, and that is why people who are similar to us also are being presumed that they are good, or they will gel along with us in a nice manner. Okay, so these are some of the basic errors in perception, because of which we end up into interpersonal conflicts in a long run, or we end up into understanding people in a wrong manner, and then things doesn't work the way it has to. So this has to be overcome. How do we overcome this? We can overcome these errors in perception only when we try to improve our own perception. The very first thing is, before judging others or before being judgmental, try to understand oneself, try to have a self-introspection where we analyze our own strength and weakness, assessing others also thoroughly. Why do we need to assess others thoroughly? Is because we, suppose if I am working in an organization, I need to know my colleagues well. So I have to have a good interpersonal relation with them, for which I need to know their traits. Empathy, we should always have empathy towards others, rather being self-centered about how I feel, how I would go through. It's always better to keep ourselves into others' place and find out how the other person feels. Okay? Acknowledging individual difference, we have to accept the fact that every individual is different from each other, and that is why we need to respect each and everyone's differences. Okay, because everybody cannot be the same, and we need to respect those differences. We need to understand that there will be individual differences, and we need to tackle along with it. If we are working in one place, or even if we are in an open forum where people are there around us, we have to respect their differences. Having positive attitude, again, when I say having a positive attitude in us, is very easy to say, but it is a very, very rigorous task where we need to work on ourselves every day to think positively, to behave positively. It is a huge hurricane task, I can say, but yes, it is not impossible if we can do it. Taking conscious of efforts to be positive, open communications at all levels. Today we see that a lot of interpersonal conflicts which is arising is due to communication gap, and all those grapevine communications which is not very healthy. Instead of that, we can be open, we can be transparent, because when we are open, when we have open and transparent communication, things can be sorted out. And today, because of this advanced technology, today we can connect to each other in all forms of communication, whether it is an email or a WhatsApp or social networking channels. help the communications to be easy. The only thing is that we need to be very, very transparent and precise in our communication so that the other person doesn't take it in a wrong manner. Avoiding attributions. Again, let us not have wrong judgments about others. We always have to be judgmental, but on the other side we also have to see that our judgments are not affecting other people's behavior. Now, what is the meaning of Jory window? Let us understand what is Jory window. Jory window is one kind of interpersonal or you can say human behavior study where we try to understand the traits and behavior of a person. Why do we need to do that? Because when we understand the human behavior and trait of a person, we can avoid interpersonal conflicts to a lot extent. So let us understand what is an open area. Open area is where a person is very open, like an open book, and people understand him, people know his traits, people know his strengths, and people know his weakness, and he is very comfortable to open himself in front of the crowd. So that is open area. Blind self is where we don't know that we have these qualities, but when other people look at us, they make a judgment, oh yes, you have this quality too, and that is the time we realize, yes, even I do have this quality and I should actually improvise on that too. The next one is hidden self. This is something which is very natural, that we try to hide whatever weaknesses we have, we don't show it to others, and we try to highlight only the good and the strength of our traits. And that is very natural, that nobody would like to share their weaknesses in front of other people. That is hidden self. Unknown self is again an unexplored matter or unexplored trait which we have not discovered in us. So there are many things in us, there are many skills, there are many qualities, there are many interests in us which we ourselves don't know, and the other people also don't know about us, because we have never thought about it, we never have explored ourselves, we have never discovered ourselves, because of which certain traits goes unexplored. So that is unknown self. The more we try to concentrate on ourselves, the more we try to do a self-introspection of ourselves, we understand ourselves better, and we will be able to overcome this area also. So these are the 4 quadrants of a personality trait which a individual have, and he tries to show it as and when according to the situation arises. So I conclude my topic with this, that perception is very important, and people should have a positive perceptions. People should have the right kind of perception, not only for oneself but also to others. So it becomes easy to assess oneself and also to assess others also, so that the interpersonal conflict and other problems related to understanding a human behavior in an organization can be reduced, and then we get an environment which is much more healthy, which is much more pleasant to work in. Thank you.